Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Hebrews, the first chapter. And before getting into it, I want to read a little bit of the background here from the Bridgeway Bible Commentary. And I'm going to skip the top part about the author. There's some that try to dispute that the book of Hebrews is not written by the Apostle Paul, but clearly we don't believe that's the case, right? So no need to even get into that. Even though the author or the commentator here does agree that it was written by Paul, we just want to get the background of what was going on at this time that prompted this letter. Okay, and what are some of the things that the Apostle Paul addresses in here? Okay, and why? So it makes sense as you read the book of Hebrews why he's making certain points. So it says here, to whom, those to whom it was written, it was no doubt addressed to Hebrew Christians, but whether to a special church or to those in a special locality is a matter of dispute. So here, Hebrew Christians would be Israelites that believed, right? But they were, you could say, of the circumcision. Several things, however, may be learned about them. They had steadfastly endured persecution and the loss of property. They had shown sympathy with other Christians or other believers. They had been Christians sometime, or for some time. They knew the writer, whom they are, by their prayers, to help restore to themselves. They knew Timothy, who was to visit them. They were now in danger of apostasy to Judaism, but had not yet resisted to blood. Their danger of because you can imagine, right? Like there's one that you had pressure on the believers from different levels, right? You had the Israelite foreigners, which were, they would have to struggle with dealing with other believers that would, look at them a certain kind of way, and then maybe it would be found out in due time that those believers really, fell out because they couldn't accept the fact. And then you would have some that were being persecuted of the circumcision that were in their areas. Because remember, you had synagogues where Jews that kept and practiced the customs in other heathen lands, right? In the Asia Minor, in Rome, right? In these different areas, Greece, they did that. Okay, and you had believers among them, and they had to endure that. But you also had believers that were, like, for example, those that were of the circumcision, those that knew they were Israelites, those that were in the regions of Judea and that nearby region. They also were being persecuted by those that did not believe, that were also of the circumcision. So it says here, their danger of going back to Judaism might arise from several sources. There was a tendency to disbelieve Hamashiach and his claims. The elaborate worship of the temple compared with the simple worship of the Christian church. The Jews branded them as traitors and taunted them for turning against the law, which was given by prophets, angels, and Moses, and from the sanctuary ministered to by the priests of God. They were suffering persecution. And you can imagine how like they could really go with this, right? Because they could really go to the Old Testament and show like a lot of precepts and accounts, and be like, yo, look at what happened when these people try to go against Moses and Aaron. Look at what the Lord did to our ancestors in the wilderness. All of these things, the oath that we were made to take. Are you just going to say, all right, now that all doesn't matter because of this belief that you're in now? It's for this very reason we suffered this, that, and the third, and you guys are doing, all of those things that they try to push to try and quell or snuff out the faith and drag these Israelites, these believers, back into the bond of the law, as to where they were, or they had the freedom through Yahushua, right? The liberty and grace. So the purpose and contents, the purpose was to prevent apostasy from Christianity to Judaism, and incidentally to comfort them in their suffering and persecution. To accomplish this purpose, the author shows by a series of comparisons that the religion of Hamashiach, or the belief through faith in Yahushua, is superior to that which preceded it. Better is the key word, which, along with other terms of comparison, such as more excellent, is constantly used to show the superiority of Christianity. It is very much like a sermon, the author often turning aside to exhort, then returning to the theme. Date, it was written from Jerusalem, Alexandria, or Rome, sometime before 70 AD, since the temple was still standing. So now, let's get into the book of Hebrews, the first chapter. And in here, you'll notice that the Apostle Paul starts, by first going into the, dealing with the level, the glory, the height of the power of Yahushua. Okay, and how he's not like just a angel, like a regular angel. He's above angels. All right, you have the angels are under him; they worship him. Okay, and so this is Hebrews chapter 1, verse 1. It says, God, who at sundry times and in diverse manners spake in time past unto the fathers by the prophets. And let's look up that word sundry for sundry times. Polomeros, many by many portions, by many times, and in many ways. So in many ways, the Lord would speak in diverse manners to the fathers by the prophets, right? Sometimes by visions, sometimes by different ways. But it says here, this God who spoke to us in the past hath also, right, in these last days spoken unto us by his Son. So Paul's letting you know that at that point, those times were also considered the last days. So those times began the last days, and our times end the last days. Okay, so he says here, has also spoken unto us by his Son, whom he hath appointed heir of all things. So the heir of all things, meaning that Yahushua would or is going to inherit everything, by whom also he made the worlds, because he tells you that in Colossians, that it was by Yahushua that the Lord made the worlds. When you go into the word worlds there in the Greek, it deals with ages, okay, the eons, and everything that is encapsulated in that. It says here, who, being the brightness of his glory and the express image of his person, and upholding all things by the word of his power, when he had by himself purged our sins, sat down on the right hand of the majesty on high. So in the brightness of his glory, right, which signifies when you use the terms like brightness for glory, you're signifying how the magnitude of his glory, right, how great he was glorified. And as it says, the express image of his person. All right, let's let's look at that in the NLT, and then let's go into some words. So it says here, the Son radiates God's own glory and expresses the very character of God, and he sustains everything by the mighty power of his command. So let's go into that word, express image. All right, it says the instrument used, okay. The exact expression, the image of any person or thing, marked likeness, precise reproduction in every aspect. Okay, so now Yahushua, as says here, the exact copy. Yahushua, being like an exact copy of his Father, it's more so in his divine form. All right, you got to remember that Yahushua came on the earth, but biologically, right, coming on the earth and fashioned as a man, he would look different, than he would in his divine glorified form. And physiologically, he would likely look more like his parents, than he would the Heavenly Father. So it's more in his glorified form. He's like an exact replica of the Father. It says here, and upholding all things by the word of his power, because the Lord had now given him that authority. So let's go into that word upholding. It says here to carry some burden, to hold up, right? I.e., uphold, keep from falling, of Hamashiach, the preserver of the universe. So if you have to uphold everything, meaning you're keeping it together, right? And that means you're responsible for it, which also means it's been committed into your power or into your hands. When he had by himself purged our sins, and how did he do that? Through the sacrifice of going up on the cross, sat down on the right hand of the majesty on high. That the majesty is the most high. So he's at the right hand of the most high, being made so much better than the angels, as he hath by inheritance obtained a more excellent name than they. So it was Yahushua being the only begotten of the Father. It was his to inherit the glory, right, of being second only to the Father. So by that inheritance, which was given to him, which was his, basically he inherited everything, right? He obtained a more excellent name or rank or authority than the angels, because the power over everything was not was not one to be given to the angels. It was to be given to the Son from the Father. For unto which of the angels, because remember, Paul is addressing here he's making it very clear that understand the power of Yahushua. He is above all angels. Okay, because you had, going back to that Second Temple Judaism, you had some that were that would hold angels at a high, regard. But Paul is saying here, let me show you, okay, the difference between the authority that Yahushua has and that of the angels. And that's why he shows the comparisons in here. So he's saying here, unto which of the angels said he at any time, thou art my son, this day have I begotten thee. See, the Lord, the Most High, never said that unto any other angel. And again, I will be to him a father, and he shall be to me a son. Which other angel did the Lord say that to? And Paul is quoting, right? Here you go. So this is Psalms 2 and 7. You are my son, today I have begotten you. And this here in 2 Samuel 7 and 14. Now, the thing about this, right? Let's pull up here. Whoa, what the hell? Psalms 2 and 7. This is David, right? Is it going to say it here? Okay, it's not going to say it here. But yeah, this is David speaking. I will declare the decree. The Lord Yahweh hath said unto me, thou art my son, this day have I begotten thee. But wait a minute, if David wrote this song, then you might think, well, wait, is David talking about himself? No. The Most High put the Spirit on David to say this. But this is David speaking like from the concerning Yahushua, concerning the relationship between the Father, the Most High, and Yahushua. The Lord just had it recorded in a psalm written by David because he was inspired through the Spirit when he said this. So, so Paul is making that distinction clear here to say, look, the Lord didn't say this about any other angel. And again, when he bringeth in the first begotten into the world, he saith, and let all the angels of God worship him. Let's see if that's we'll see which one's he quoting there. Okay, you're just not gonna disappear. Okay, cool. That's all right too. See if we can cross-reference this. Okay, it might have been quoting Psalms 97 and 7, but if only this would stop acting up and allow me to see it. There you go. Okay. So you have Deuteronomy 32 and 43, and Psalms 97 and 7. So what you'll notice is there are a lot of if you want to understand a good amount of the Psalms, you got to read the New Testament. You got to read the writings of the Apostle Paul, all right, because he makes those connections there, and so you can see the distinction. Some of those precepts in there, a lot of those precepts in there are really about Yahushua, but with David being the author or somebody else being the author, if the Spirit is not working with you, you might miss that. So we just know when Paul is saying here, again he saith, and he's quoting, right? When he's saying that, he's quoting something that's written more than likely in the Psalms, but not exclusive to the Psalms. So once again, let's read that again. Verse 6. And again, when he bringeth in the first begotten, which is Yahushua, into the world, he saith, and let all the angels of God worship him. And of the angels, he saith. So he's making a distinction here. He's saying, look, concerning Yahushua, this is what the Father said concerning him. The rest of the angels, this is what he said. And of the angels, he saith, who maketh his angels spirits, and his ministers a flame of fire. Ministers are likened unto servants. All right, let's go into that word ministers. Right, a public minister, a servant of the state, a minister, a servant. Okay, so of the servants of a king. So concerning the angels, he referred to them as servants. NLT, regarding the angels, he says, he sends his angels like the winds, his servants like flames of fire, which is referring to his angels. But unto the Son he saith, thy throne, O God, is forever and ever. A scepter of righteousness is the scepter of thy kingdom. See? So once again, Paul is using here the writings, and I believe here he's also quoting a psalm in Hebrews 1 and 8, but it doesn't show it over here. Does it show it here? No? Okay. Show it somewhere here. Yep, Psalms. So David writing or singing these psalms, spiritually, what's happening is really the Lord announcing things or speaking concerning Yahushua through David. And Paul is quoting these things to show the distinction and say, hey, when it came to the angels, the rest of the angels, the Lord called them servants. When it came to Yahushua, this is what he said. So understand that they're on two different levels. So it says here, but unto the Son he saith, thy throne, O God, right, which Yahushua is a power, he is a God, he is a divine entity, is forever and ever. Thy throne, a scepter of righteousness, is the scepter of thy kingdom. See, because that's the Yahushua has dominion, not like the angels. Thou hast loved righteousness and hated iniquity. Therefore, God, even thy God. So don't get caught up on these words, God, here. Okay, the angels are a form of a God. They're Alahayim. They're divine ones. So here it's referring to Yahushua, right? Therefore, Yahushua being a divine being, not the Most High God, but he is a divine. He is also a God. Therefore, Yahushua, even thy God, your God, which is the Most High, hath anointed thee with the oil of gladness above thy fellows. See? So the Lord, the Most High, which is the God of Yahushua, anointed Yahushua with the oil of gladness above his fellows, that put him on a higher level than anybody else. And thou, Lord, in the beginning, has laid the foundation of the earth, and the heavens are the works of thine hands. Right? Because once again, going back to the time of the creation, where the Father had everything made by the Son. They shall perish, but thou remainest, and they all shall wax old as doth a garment. Reading this in the NLT says, they will perish, but you remain forever. They will wear out like old clothing. And as a vesture shalt thou fold them up, and they shall be changed, but thou art the same, and thy years shall not fail. And that's basically just emphasizing the eternity, okay, of the Lord. But to which of the angels said he, once again, at any time, sit on my right hand until I make thine enemies thy footstool? Yeah, he didn't say that to any other angel, only to Yahushua. Are they not all ministering spirits, right? Aren't they all servants sent forth to minister for them who shall be heirs of salvation? So they're not on the level of Yahushua. They were created as servants for the Lord, and their job is to minister or to serve them who shall be heirs of salvation. Those are the elect. And that brings us to the end of the book of Hebrews, the first chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakha Kodesh. And until next time, Shalom.